city, um, one of the processes that we talked about as far as being able to perform information, to share information in the time of COVID. A lot of the digital health and digital information that we do share, as far as going through different hospitals and things like that, sometimes that information cannot be shared as freely as they want to because of HIPAA compliances and other information. And I kind of wanted to share a report that IBM actually has done with their digital health pass. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up. Brittany, can you hold on for a second? I need to like actually pull this up.
While you're doing that, could you put the
Put a link in my bio. Yeah, I can do that.
thanks?
If I those of you who were part of that conversation last week, we talked about designing a Bitcoin building and what would that as a pie in the sky idea, what would that even look like? Um, and so it's a matter of thinking again outside of the box. What could a blockchain city look like? Um, there's so many components from a view on what the future of technology could look like. What does that look like from an access perspective, which is what we typically talk about in these rooms, and we really just want to encourage a similar dialogue. While Marcus is actually, pulling up that report for us to get inspiration from. So we're just extending the idea to a broader city. We came up with a lot of really cool solutions last week, and just continuing this conversation. And we got Amirali here in the room as well, who's hugely participatory in the last conversation that we had. Um,
Actually, one of the people who actually helped us come up with the first idea. So I appreciate you, Morales, for showing up.
Hey, Brittany, Marcus, and everyone else. Thank
you ready,
I'm
Marcus?
expecting an answer.
probably that cool.
Yeah, and
where it goes. But if you make the claim that you want to do something in the world, and sometimes you'll be surprised at who's listening and actually wants to pursue it with.
Better stock up on E.
I, I, I have a feeling about ETH right now. So I know a few people who do a few different blockchain projects that are already built. And the problem is that the transaction speed's too low and the gas speed, is too slow and the gas fees are too high. And so those who actually have working blockchain applications are looking for other options and switching to either people who used to work for the Ethereum Foundation. So they're going to like Tezos or Cardano, or even just going straight Hyperledger. One of the things that's actually really helpful right now is Hyperledger just open sourced, work with partnering with IBM, just open source their token methodology. So the idea of being able to build tokens on Hyperledger is now more possible, which is actually very advantageous for some people who are thinking more about private blockchain networks. One of the I would say another thing that I found interesting about this whole process was I did not understand that um, code. I didn't understand that the level of support Hyperledger actually had with their different blockchain applications, and they just recently did their conference, and around I think June 24th they will be releasing their videos live for on YouTube. So people want to, if they want to see what some of the latest stuff, information that Hyperledger is coming out with, that would be a place for people to go. I'll try to make the announcement again, probably next week or so, about that as well. The website that I got the information from the digital health though is goodhealthpass.org. If you click my Instagram, I posted a link to it. My Twitter doesn't have it, just because I was trying to post the actual article. Hey Don, hey Anthony, welcome to the stage as well. Um, Before we move on to more information, Don, would you like to introduce yourself? And then Anthony, you're on deck.
Hi, everyone. My name's Don Bowden. I'm here to learn about building a blockchain city. So look forward to hearing everyone speak.
My name is Anthony Very. I have experience in building smart city technologies, smart buildings, and IoT networks. And I'm happy to be on board here talking about building a blockchain city.
After this, I want to hear how your MySpace page is going, Anthony. I want to see how many followers you've increased it to at this point.
Okay, so I just if you go to goodhealthpass.org, you'll be able to see some of the information as far as the trials, what they're trying to do. One of the since Don and Anthony, since you guys came a little bit late, basically I just wanted to go into digital health as far as connectivity and just talk about that. As far as like the digital health pass ecosystem um, that just got like for credentialing just got released, and so basically they see it as a diamond. So you have people, travel, legal and compliance, and health. So those are the different pathways that they looked at it. And so they want to separate it into four different parties from there. So the issuers of the credentials and the passes, the holders of the credential and the passes. So basically, those would be your digital wallets, your verifiers of the credentials and passes, which will be kind of your governance and your government framework, and then your government's authority to publish the rules and policies of the government's framework. So it'll be basically either associations or institutions working with uh, the cities or areas where they can actually so and it, to come up with some of the concepts that they need as far as in configuration. So they just kind of refer to it as the trust diamond for themselves. I'm trying to see if I can find some pictures that I can like just kind of PTR, but I can kind of just talk about one of the challenges, which is basically the idea is that they didn't want credentialing to be just paper based. So they were trying to look at different ways they can actually do this. So like solutions like QR codes didn't necessarily have the size and limits that they were looking for, and the specifications and order of operation for the compressed data actually mattered when trying to understand the information.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Marcus, just as we talk through this a little bit more application based, is I actually had the opportunity to speak with um, Ryan Rugg. She is the global blockchain industry leader for IBM. And we were actually able to talk about the rollout of this digital health pass. And what they did when they were working with the state of New York is, I mean, this was rolled out back in March, right? When everybody was concerned about, um, and I suppose everybody's still concerned about it. Who's been vaccinated? Um, have they been able to communicate that? And is there that confidence when people are navigating through the entire state of New York, that you can show when you're entering into a building or into a facility whereby someone can trust that you've gone and gotten your vaccine and are not posing a safety concern to those who you'll be surrounded with? And so they rolled this out in that very practical sense. Lots of organizations were very, very interested in um, making this idea available for employees to to be able to communicate through this digital health pass. So, she and I have conspired to do a live stream together. We just have to get it on the calendar. So look out for that in the coming weeks, probably in July or August, to talk about how well it's been going. But it's really, really interesting what their involvement has been in getting something like this, a digital health pass, rolled out. But imagine outside of just the vaccine, what other credentialing opportunities you can store on a pass, whether it be your simple something as simple as your driver's license or your library card, or maybe OSHA training, or it could be anything that you want to show that is, something that is issued by a standards organization or organization that provides some sort of certification that must be verified. And you can show that as evidence through your pass to those who are interested, but you can choose only those who are permissioned to see it within a particular period of time, to see that piece of information when needed. So it could be a marriage license, could be anything. Just throwing that out there. I think, Marcus, what you're getting at is this idea could be a foundation for said blockchain city. So with that, um, now that we've laid it out, I don't know, Marcus, did you have any other ideas before kind of posing some responses to the group?
Well, there there is a city right now, Brittany, that is actually working on this. If you go to, the company's called Blockchains LLC. If you go to blockchains.com, you will be able to see some of the infrastructure and some of the things that they're trying to do, and some of the process what they're trying to do. They're building they own the land, and they have some land in Nevada that they are trying to build an entire city off of blockchain. I was aware of them in 2017. They haven't broke ground yet, so they're still in the ideation phase, and trying to find some support with being able to build this new smart city. Um, but they definitely have some ideas around. They actually bought a software company or a software development company to actually pursue some of their ideas, especially around the digital identity space, because being able to know who you are and say who you are and be able to only allow the information that you want to be able to show. For example, if you go to a bar and you go ahead and show your ID, now the person knows your address, knows your age, what they're supposed to do, but knows your weight and height. Maybe you don't want to be able to show that information, and you want to be able to protect yourself from any other type of harm that may come your way. So being able to restrict access to those type of things could be extremely helpful for you. Um, I know a lot of the times, especially during 2020, with all the stuff that was happening with Facebook and social media. How am I being advertised to? GDPR. Um, what information am I allowing to be shared? And being able to authenticate the information that you're trying to be able to share is going to be extremely helpful for some of these places to just be able to go to you know, if to be able to travel, this is not necessarily in this city, but think about being able to travel on a plane. We can check in on our plane, but being able to show our passports in other places, which should be a thing, um, but is not currently, especially if we're able to pay uh, through our everyday life by just using our phones. There's conversations now that I've seen being had on even TV stations where they're joking about, like, why do you even need a wallet? Do you even need a wallet anymore? Because all you have to do is just put your driver's license in your phone, and then you can just go around and pay for everything that you want. And I can
I'm curious, Marcus, can we also kind of round out the conversation as much as it's opportunity? Um, what kind of lines will ever be drawn around privacy?
think you can dictate those lines now, like, and be able to sell that information. So if I opt in to, there's blockchain projects right now that are offering, instead of the advertise going the other way around where they're paying Facebook for the opportunity to advertise to you, they can pay the consumer directly to be able to advertise in that information to you. So that person can elect to show, hey, I like to, I don't know, like for example, go snowboarding. So if you're a company that's interested in snowboarding, I can now elect to be able to get the information that I'm looking for by advertisers, so I can actually look for, and for the consumer, now I'm actually looking for this type of stuff because I'm interested in snowboarding. I can get that information of the different products and services that I can get. Maybe I just need some coaching. Maybe I just want like the next cool outfit or something like that. Or if I was like a person who is into uh I don't know, a favorite soccer team, I can get a snowboarding with my favorite soccer team on a logo or something like that.
I'll also add to that in answering your question, Stephanie. When you have your credentialing on your own pass, what it does, or I should say, on a network connected blockchain based system, right? When you have it there, what you have is the ownership of the permissioning for your credentials. Whereas now you have pieces of paper at government facilities holding documentation on your behalf that can be stolen, that can be copied by, this will never happen, copied by some professional that's working there. It's actually more at risk in someone else's hands, perhaps, quote unquote. And I know you'll see this a lot probably outside of the US. Um, you have the ability to open up your credentialing at your discretion to those who you feel are worthy of seeing your credentials at the time that you intend for them to see it, and only at that time you can close their access to it. So what it does by having your credentials on the blockchain is it gives you the power as the owner of your own credentials to really to own how it's perceived and used. So ultimately it should provide more security to your documentation. That's at least the one of the benefits that's been explained through blockchain solutions rather.
I have a question about that. Just to add on a little bit. So, Brittany Marcus, and we're talking about just ownership of permissioning of my identity. But what about the free apps that currently exist, in which, when you sign up for a free app, for example, essentially are giving them permission to use your information, and FB for Facebook has our information already. So, how does that get remediated? When and if we, continue to move in this direction of having our own ownership, how do we bridge that gap?
That sounds like a really untanglement ball, since if someone like Facebook already owns our data, and I've been on Facebook since college, right? So all the information that Facebook actually has and owns of me, I don't, um, and has of me, being able to receive that information back from Facebook or block them, I think that would actually take legislation policy.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
I mean, we have a lawyer in the room, so maybe we can ask.
Hey,
Okay, maybe.
hey guys. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm working. I'd rather listen right now if I may.
That's
Oh,
totally fine.
no.
Thank you.
Anthony, have you actually dealt with a situation like that? As far as information, as far as IoT, where they've gotten too much, like a company has gotten too much information, and what was the solution to be able to receive that information back? Only thing I can see is lawsuits right now.
It wasn't necessarily IoT related, but there is software that companies can deploy that tracks everything you do on your computer, your work computer, any and all communications, can even get control of the video camera and microphone. And there is privacy issues and concerns about if companies need to let the employees know that this software, and one of, not to call out a company, but one of them is called Active Track. And it is a touchy subject because sometimes it can lead to an employee getting terminated, but then it's also a fine line. Is it invading privacy if it is during business hours on a business device? So lawyers are battling this out, and I think it's going to be a state by state legislation that will decide these types of cases. But it is a very touchy subject. Where do you decide where personal privacy is being invaded and what limit do corporations have as far as devices that they give their employees during work hours? What are they able to know and collect information about you on? My name's Anthony, and I'm stopping there.
I know, Anthony, we talked about before the topic of digital immortality and then what happens when we die, right? We have all this information about ourselves and things like that. And then do we scrape it, or does somebody preserve it? Because I know Brittany had a talk about with a company on a podcast on one of the live streams about actually digitizing for they were looking for to digitize for family members and being able to say, hey, if I want to talk to grandpa or my great 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 whatever, and be able to as we're recording all our actions on the internet be able to scrape all that stuff and develop an identity so the person can actually talk to that person, which sounds super scary, or sounds a lot like Altered Carbon, if anyone is familiar with that Netflix show. So is that like something that you seeing people try to
Yeah, that was something I mentioned several months back, that I was working with a company under an NDA regarding this technology. And they also collect data on you while you're still living, as far as your mannerisms, your tone, how you speak, what things you like and dislike. So that way it can create a digital twin or carry your persona forward beyond your life. So it is a very interesting topic. But it also made me think about the business opportunity that actually can be had right now, for somebody to create a corporation or a software service where if you had a family member that passed and had many social media accounts and other online accounts and rewards programs, and how do you end all that and get all that data or scrape it away or close all those accounts? I know my family probably doesn't know all the accounts that I have open and so forth. So there's information and necessarily maybe articles, pictures, buying habits that are still out there. If there was a company that offered a service that you could turn to and they would close all those accounts, they would make sure none of those pictures are still shared on those servers, that a family member or friend is no longer around. I think that would be of great benefit. Just because of this past year, this crazy pandemic, I know a few that did pass, and this was an issue.
Ellie, I'm trying to invite you back up, but can you rejoin and come back because it's not working right now?
So I just want to piggyback off of what Anthony said. So what if, and I heard rumors, I don't know if they're true. I mean, it sounds like some of the things that we're talking about, Apple's pretty much doing for us already if you are an iPhone user. So imagine you're talking about, well, how can we have one single place where we can have certifications, have your cards, have your driver's license, have your wallets? Like Apple has a wallet that keeps all those things on your phone. And then, well, what about gaining access? Who knows how many accounts I have? And literally, Apple has notified me, or a little pop up on my phone. It's like, hey, you do realize all these passwords that might have been in a leak. And it shows me everything I've ever logged into, everything, or at least what I've saved into my phone through the keychain, right? So I think Apple's doing that. If you're saying a company, granted, that can be a Google, right? It depends on who we're allowing to have that access. So maybe if Apple sees that potential, like, well, why don't we blockchain our keychain? Then maybe that may be a potential solution.
This is Marcus. Anthony, I was not actually referring to the project that you were working on. It was a podcast with Paul Doherty with the data dilemma. That was actually a conversation brought up there. But that was we actually I actually heard about it even more so just yesterday in another clubhouse room that was around the House of Digital Twins. So they were talking about digital twins of humans is not far off of where you think they're. So there's a lot of companies that are actually thinking about doing this for digital immortality. My personal experience, I have a mother who passed away, and I don't have access to her Facebook account anymore because we got rid of her phone, and I can't stop any messages. I'm sure there's a process to be able to go through that, but then I would have to go through if she had a LinkedIn account or whatever and be able to actually go through that whole process. So, um, yeah, I think what happens when we die is it's huge.
We joined a DeFi conference a couple weeks ago, and there was actually a gentleman, particularly talking about his crypto assets, and he's basically written in his will what he expects as far as who's going to receive his assets after he passes away. And he has actually in some lockbox accounts, rather some lockboxes at his home and also at the bank, what his keys are for his crypto wallets. And as we're thinking about these things, perhaps those are some ways for us to think about our digital identities as well, giving us not only are we thinking about our physical assets, what goes to who and how and where. But if we have any kind of substantial asset, whether it be physical or your identity, maybe that's something for us to actually start thinking about more. I don't know, intentionally than we have been in the past. It's something it's difficult to talk about, but it's something that is really important. Um, so yeah, just uh, something to consider as we navigate through life. If we care about some things, might as well think about some plans for it. I like the idea. Oh, did Nastasia leave? I like Nastasia's idea of thinking about who might have these opportunities. Uh, Apple is one, but there's a ton more. But anyway, wanted to open it up for questions and discussion.
I was thinking, looking at this blockchain's infrastructure stack that they have. One of the things was governance and city engagement, and the idea was around government leadership and policy as far as regulation. If government officials are held to what they said that they were going to do and being able to track that information, that would actually be very helpful for citizens and make more citizens more aware and concerned about their votes, because making sure that just like how we track sports as far as advanced analytics, now we'll be able to track what these officials are planning to do or wanting to do or saying they're attempting to do, and did that goal actually become completed.
I'm also interested in the education aspect because I almost think it's this whole topic is not out in the mass consumption. I think most people, hear about blockchain, Bitcoin, whatever, but I think it's few and far between, I'll say in North America, that it's actually embraced, followed, and expected to be something that, current generations are going to live through. So I'm curious to know what in your circles and your experiences have you seen this trickle down to the education system?
education as far as being able to teach like kids and students like what blockchain means and how that should.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'll tell you.
I don't.
Oh, I was just gonna say here really quick, Marcus. I would say every other week, I've been hearing about different universities bringing in either a class or some sort of program to help teach blockchain fundamentals or programming um, around the country. And it was funny because Nasaja and I were going back and forth. What was it yesterday? Talking about it would be great if kids, if babies had exposure to what blockchain is about and kind of like get their heads wrapped around what this is and in sort of a logic based manner. Because to your point, Stephanie, it's not so socialized yet, but when we did a quick search, there are books out there for like babies about blockchain. There is a lot of there are a lot of resources out there to break this stuff down. It's been gaining popularity for years now, for more than a decade. Well, yeah, what year are we in? Almost a decade, right? Like, so it's definitely out there. It's a matter of looking for it, I think. Marcus, did you have another thought on that?
Well, you have the Blockchain Institute in Canada that's really pushing some stuff through, mainly advertising people from, I would say, colleges. Brittany's a part of Women of Color and Blockchain group, and on the call, they actually featured 4 college students and talking about their journey and their experience of being able to use blockchain, and how one had to go elsewhere to get it. But the one of the biggest things that actually surprised me is one of the students actually attended at HBCU, and they actually have a um, division within that school that is all about blockchain. And I was really surprised by that. And I started like just Googling and searching a whole bunch of stuff about it. And it's been in existence for about maybe 3 or 4 years now. And and a lot of other schools are reaching out to them to understand how they were able to build that blockchain program up and how they were able to educate their students as well.
Thank you for that. I don't want to hog the room, but I'm curious then to know what the demographic um, cutoff might be, because we've talked about, people passing away and the ramifications. So whoever the youth that are taking this up in the in terms of it being now built into universities and colleges to teach, they're going to have a lot on their hands in terms of the generations that have come after them to um, take it through the life cycle, I guess. This will be very interesting to see, who actually has the maturity to take this and quite frankly tip society on its side.
I I don't think it would be much different than the advent of some technologies that we have seen in our lifetime. Most probably comparable would be the smartphone or the cell phone, actually, to begin things.
Totally agree, Anthony. I mean, the internet too, it's like, everybody recognize the word the internet, right? Like the internet, the web, the there's been an evolution of adaptation. That's the word I'm looking for different technologies. And to your point, Stephanie, it's a matter of socializing and educating. And there are organizations that focus on Gen Xers, as an example. There are universities that focus on education to the working professional. So I'm part of the Construction Blockchain Consortium. They are based out of London at the University College of London, but they are very much tapped into educating um, large organizations who are in the AECO realm, really doing their best to educate from an academic perspective through writing white papers and hosting events, to really just share like what is blockchain and get those fundamentals out there about how it can affect organizations. There's Blockchains LLC. There's Blockchain 101. There's a number of organizations that are really just dedicated to like the fundamentals of what is it and how does it work. Lexi wasn't able to make it today, but the Chicago Blockchain Center, that was backed by the state of Illinois. Like there are organizations out there that are being supported to get this education out there.
And then, like to Stephanie's point, would it become an access issue? Because in the information age, there's information available. I won't say people have access to it necessarily, but information there, right? So I always look at one of my favorite topics, which would be finance, right? And there's like, well, why is there such a disparity when like the books are out there, the knowledge is out there? So I'm wondering if having the information available via blockchain institutes and whatnot would be enough versus integrating it into the education system as another fundamental like math or English or science, right? So because if money or anything along that, like how different would the population and demographics be if that was included as like a fundamental teaching versus a like, oh, if you want to, if you have a willingness to learn, change, and do, then you get access to these things. So I'm just wondering,
Nastasia, that's kind of what I was thinking
in our blockchain
more. It's a cultural, it's as much a cultural idea as it is a part of the growth of tech.
Can I throw something out there to you guys?
We're ready to receive.
So back in the day, back to storytelling. Back in what, second grade? I had a really, really cool experience in my history class. Now I went to a really small private school, Christian private school, in Homewood, Illinois. And I was in a class of maybe 15 students. One of my classmates, his mom, she went to the teacher and said, "Hey, look, last year in first grade, I recognized during Black History Month, you guys didn't cover anything around Black history specifically. And I looked through the history book and I don't see anything specifically covered around Black history. I would love if I could come during one class or two classes, whatever you're able to give me, willing to give me, and teach your students about Black history." Guess what? She came in and she taught us some very, very interesting fundamentals around inventions that Black inventors came up with. And I got a really, really great exposure to Black history because one of my classmates' parents came in and talked to us about it. The reason why I bring this story up is because there are going to be instances like that whereby we have to take advantage of what we think is important for kids to learn. We have to share, like how I was talking about Twitch earlier. We have to share the important information where the students live because we think it's important, and demand this from our educational institutions. If we don't ask for it, it's not going to just happen. Same thing with any other kind of technology, robotics. That comes down to funding, right? Like it's about how much do you want to advocate? Do you get enough people to advocate for a particular cause? Maybe it's just as easy as asking, can I come in and talk to your class about it? Maybe you have to get somebody who's a credentialed person to come in and talk about it. Could be before school, after school, during lunch, create a club. These are the kinds of really um, grassroots kind of things that if it's important, those are going to be the things that will need to take place. So that's my little story. Hopefully that it has inspired you a little bit.
I love that, Brittany.
So now I just got to build my own school so I can show up whenever I want.
That's
That story, Brittany. As far as opportunity, um, uh, I we went for a walk today, and one of the things I was telling Brittany about was I went to day camp a lot, but I didn't go to day camp to really learn anything. I didn't go to like coding camp or to learn. Back then it was like basketball camp. I didn't go to any of those things. I just went to day camp and we just did other games. And so being able to have access to some of these things to be able to have the opportunity to learn would have been very beneficial for me. I started off as a computer engineer and I switched to electrical because I didn't know how to code. And I actually saw a big gap where there were students in my classes who had experience of coding and understood it, and they saw it before, and versus me who was seeing it for the first period of time. So I learned there was a skill gap of me being able to catch up to those students to be able to learn. And I felt like I did not, because I did not have access, I was starting at a lower starting point than they.
Yeah, and if you ever read the book by Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers, uh, it's a really interesting, yeah, nostalgia. I know you read the book. Thanks. Then the Outliers really talks about what is it, the 10,000 hour rule, where if you're exposed to and practice a particular skill over and over and over again, you have the ability to now adapt quickly to an environment and actually be ahead of your peers. The thing I wanted to call out is that's the reason why Bill Gates has the success that he does. He had exposure early and he was able to enact on that exposure and education that he had because of different resources he had available. When he was young, he had access to a lab and access to computers. Um, so yeah, it's a really interesting thing to think about as we're thinking about a blockchain city. What does that mean from an educational standpoint? I mean, if it's to your point, a fundamental way of thinking, um, and logic and inclusivity and giving people access as well. Those are the kinds of things that really are fundamental to making a blockchain city work. So really, really great discussion here. I'm excited about the questions that you've brought up. We are right at the hour mark. Um, other questions, other ideas? Well, we're ready to go. This is Wednesday. You guys know this is like one of my most favorite times of the week. What do you else? What other ideas would you like for us to discuss during this time?
I have one that I always have thought of ways to use technology for the masses, and some events over the past year and a half highlighted um, some things here in the U.S. that I thought might be beneficial if we came up with solutions, and we have the technology obviously to do it. So if you have homeless or poverty within cities all across the U.S. Um, and you don't have a driver's license or you don't have an ID card, that doesn't mean you're not a U.S. citizen anymore. Um, but because of some new laws that are being passed in some states right now, um, they're trying to say certain things need to be had to prove that you're still a U.S. citizen or that you have rights to anything. So I wanted to see there's ways that we could use blockchain that can be identified through either fingerprinting, eye scanning, facial recognition. So if someone was homeless for whatever reason, or lost a job, and all the different scenarios, if they did come to a hospital, or if they came to vote, or they came to social services and didn't have their ID or lost it or what, they could still be identified and know that they're a U.S. citizen, and then allow their data, that they have the right to their own data, to be shared with whatever venue that they're at. So if they go and say, okay, I've identified myself through thumbprint and facial recognition, I'm going to share my data with Social Security Services so I could sign up for benefits or what have you. I'm just trying to think of ways that we could incorporate technology solutions for the poor and impoverished and homeless, where they might not have a smartphone and a digital wallet to carry everything in going forward. So I'd love to hear if anyone else has any ideas or any feedback. I'd appreciate it. This is
thinking very Minority Report-ish for my fellow movie buff. So if we think of it in terms of blockchain technology, right? Like that person, I don't want to say each person at birth is assigned a private key or something. So there has to be some type of authentication, authorization process that leverages their biometrics. But I don't see why not. That's what I think Stephanie often brings us back to, is how do we address the people that may be left out due to lack of technical access. Like to your point, homeless people not having access to cell phones. Even though in the United States you can be homeless and have a cell phone and a fresh pair of sneakers, and that's just America. So, but to address it on a worldwide arena, that I don't know. Unless we go the Minority Report route, where they can have eye scanners everywhere, so you know where you are. We can take care of you and get access that way. But I'm open to any suggestions as well. I'm done.
I would almost think that it's how the pandemic was handled. As Brittany had said earlier, as far as your next conversation is with, I believe it's Ryan Rugg. However we have figured out the pandemic, wouldn't be unlike, meaning that homeless people or whoever, the disenfranchised, whatever words we're using in the room tonight, they still had to get a vaccine. They still had to be addressed in some way, shape, or form, if for no other reason, so that the infection wasn't allowed to, permeate in those groups. So whatever might be the solutions, as far as I'm concerned, they would be enfolded in the solutions.
When I did some volunteering at a shelter, one of the things, it was at a church, but I did notice that they had to present cards and identify themselves or submit their name, and the location would have some type of it was a manual process, some type of sheet of paper to acknowledge who this person was and identify who they were, so they could, have access to the facilities. Mainly because the facility that I was located in had children as well. So I think probably part of that process, um, when I saw it, I was like, man, this should be definitely digitized. Um, so I think being able to show that to be able to digitize some of that information and be able to put it on a blockchain would definitely be beneficial. Just seeing it from my experience, as far as a hands-on, as far as people who um, are homeless and disenfranchised.
Because you could take that in any realm. I mean, voting would be the same, anything that massively affects all of, I'll say the big all of us, would be great testing grounds for how to, roll out blockchain and understand how to modify what needs to be modified as it becomes more socialized and popular.
Yeah, with voting, it been pushed multiple times. Especially really hard for people who even used to work in government, especially in Illinois. The thing that came around was digital identity being the roadblocker for that. Um, and I'm sure there's a growing frustration as cell phones are keep getting better and better and better. I can ask for an Uber ride and pay stuff, but I can't vote. It doesn't make no sense. Um, I think we should for um, but a story to go with voting for me is when I moved back home from college for good, because I was registered in a different location. I could not vote, and not necess- not the last presidential election, but like two before it. I couldn't vote at all because I was registered 5 hours south.
There's lots of opportunity here. And the more you think about what kind of identity needs you could spread this to, the more and more we can go down the rabbit hole. You think about people who need aid, food stamps, link card, whatever the case might be. You could even, share your eligibility for that when you're in need. And it could be very up to date based upon your most recent applications. No one has to go down that record trail, right? Thinking about access again. Um, to Marcus's point for that homeless shelter, I when I was living in Chicago, I would talk with a lot of homeless people. There was one individual where she had a phone that she shut off the internet access. She shut off the cell phone connectivity whenever she knew she wasn't going to need it, and she would turn it on when she wanted to connect to the internet because she knew how she was paying for the services. She probably had like a pay to use plan, something like that. And so, if we were able to figure out ways to have identity information stored whereby it's always accessible um, offline. Um, and then when you do connect online, in order for it to be transferred, I mean, you could be connecting to Wi-Fi in order to transfer particular pieces of information. Those things are the things that public organizations that require credentialings, they're going to need to think about. How can they make sure that through Wi-Fi connectivity, through guest networks, will you be able to make these things available to people, and access available to people from an internet standpoint in order for them to show things that they're looking for. I think those are the kinds of things that, we're going to have to be thinking through, whether it be through LiDAR or, whatever it is. We talked about 6G the other day. There are opportunities for us to think about how it becomes a little bit more general access, in order to make these things more commonplace and available to all humans. So, just some thoughts I'm putting out there.
And Nastasia brought up a really interesting observation that, indeed, you do see some quote unquote homeless people with new shoes and a cell phone. But I don't think it's any different than anywhere else in the world where, I heard Jerry Seinfeld say, because I'm such a fan of comedians in cars getting coffee, how, Michael Richards said that, he went I don't, somewhere in South Africa. He was, I forget where he was, but in some remote village, somebody recognized him, and they came chasing after him. Michael Richards, Seinfeld, whatever. I mean, people can get access to what they want to get access to if they want it bad enough, I guess. No matter what it.
I used to feel that way about touring.
About what, Marcus?
Marcus, I think we lost you for a sec there.
Oh, I remember in college, some people felt that way about being able to access anything as far as music and stuff on the internet. They felt like they could get anything that they actually wanted. And I also found out there's some other websites that people were using to be able to access, to be able to get other free stuff. But that free stuff was at the expense of other people's credit cards and information. Um, and I guess that would show the dark side of the internet. If you dig deep enough, you'll find whatever you're looking for.
Cody, Amirali, you guys have been pretty quiet during the conversation. And Rory, I know you're new to Clubhouse here. You're more than welcome to raise your hand and jump into the conversation. Lee, Tyler, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We've been talking a ton about identity. And how do we make sure that that capability to show credentials is accessible to all? We are live streaming. We are on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and Twitch. Just sharing the conversation and inviting those who are on those platforms and are listening to us to join the conversation. We have put some links to some resources in the chat for these conversations, particularly in Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope. So if you're looking for those, you can find those there. Yeah, guys, this has been a really fun and like down to earth conversation. Last week we were pie in the sky and talk about rocket ship, ape, but it's been it's been really fun. But I would love to hear from you guys, Cody, Amirali, and then any of those who are in the audience who want to chime in. We'd love to hear from you. And then after
Sure.
that,
Thanks for
after
the
that, I would
nudge.
love to go through our plus deltas as well. Sorry, go ahead, Cody. Please introduce yourself and share your thoughts.
Sure. I'm Cody. I did an intro at the very beginning, but we didn't have everybody in the room. I'm a AEC professional. I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now, and focused on construction technology. So I've kind of dabbled here and there over the years with blockchain, crypto. Have a basic understanding, I would say. So I've been just sitting over here, kind of working, listening in the background, just soaking up all the wealth of information that's being shared, and really trying to dial in on, what the subject is of this this live stream, building a blockchain city. And I'm still trying to kind of connect the dots with everything that everybody else is talking about. I'm not sure that it all connects directly, but I'm really curious to hear from the speakers that are up here, anyone that has like a real, what do I want to say? Almost, I guess it's kind of too early for an elevator pitch, but like a direct, this is what blockchain could do for the built environment.
Oh, there is a blockchain being built, like definitely being built. And one person has put their money where their mouth is. That's what I was mentioning. Blockchains LLC. They are thinking about all these different layers. So they're thinking about it from infrastructure. They're thinking about citizen government engagement, ownership, privacy, data. They're looking at environmental sustainability and mobility. There's growing, if you are into driverless cars or anything with automation with cars, there is a growing community that is trying to figure out how to integrate blockchain with that. And then they're thinking about economics, prosperity, and social diversity. And so that's their information stack. I can go into some of the other details about it, but um, right now we just went into privacy and data, um, or we can kind of like
So
recap the last conversation. Go ahead,
no,
Cody.
I get that, the sort of 30,000 feet in the air idea aspect. I'm
Gotcha.
just more, I guess, what more I'm asking for is like, roll your sleeves up, get your hands dirty, and is there any like actionable things? It's so vague. I'm trying, because there's so much to this.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
there anything that's actually happening? Is there any like first steps to actually make it happen, that like proof of concept or MVP that's actually happening, instead of just like more of the idea side of
I
things?
got you. I got you. I got you. So what? So like even though even though they have like 60,000 acres of land, it's still nothing has kind of broken through. For them, they were thinking about building this originally all based off the back of Ethereum. It's kind of seemed like that got he is kind of not talked about that as much. But I think there's applications, instead of like thinking about it from this standpoint. There there's a there's a blockchain real estate society called Fabri, and a lot of their process is around title in real estate as far as ownership, but as far as like the actual constructing of the building and building the building and integrating the building, um, we kind of talked about some of those things, but nothing that I know about or aware of that people have really pushed through. Most of this stuff and most of this technology is usually tied to IoT devices. I know the Edge uses blockchain for tenant leases, and they use it also in their um, program for um, like I would say like employee engagement. So if you do certain tasks, you can get access, you can get swag for it. But those are the areas that I'm aware of, and I'm done speaking. Did that help at all, Cody? You're on mute, Cody. If you
At the end of the day, I think Marcus, to your point, it's going to be piecemeal. And I will tell you, I'm actually having an interview with someone named Michael Lake. He is the CEO of Leading Cities. And we're actually going to be talking about a program that he has called Excella City, that actually really is an accelerator and competition for startups to support cities and the development of cities all around the globe. There are startup companies that are doing blockchain solutions, and I haven't dug into them deeply yet in order to ask those questions that I'm going to be asking Michael when we do talk next week, Friday, during a live stream. But we're going to be talking about, okay, well, how does this connection of startup companies now support the cities who've connected to the Leading Cities program in the first place? But I love his approach because he's thinking about how do you connect these up and coming, really innovative ideas and help them to really support governments, to support how we carry out utilization of just technology in general, whether it be AI, whether it be, whatever it is, technology based for cities. And I think that that's just one small way. But again, it's going to be piecemeal. One thing that Marcus and I have talked about on here on Clubhouse, we're looking to build this community here on Clubhouse, taking the perspective of teams. It's going to be a similar thing when it comes to integrating technology. It's going to be blockchain of blockchains, right? It won't be just one. They're going to be interconnected data, whereby what you need at a particular moment in time is going to be on a different blockchain, and you'll have to integrate them somehow in order for you to get what you need in order to move forward, whether it's city information modeling. you know that's definitely something. There are lots of advocates about that right now, but how does that tie to this credentialing aspect, right? Um, it's that's what's exciting about this era, in my opinion. There's lots of technologies that have the opportunity to tie into others, and we just have to keep looking at what those things are and figuring out ways to promote companies who can do that for cities so that we can actually realize what we've been envisioning. That's my
Be
statement. I'm
really
done speaking.
cool, Brittany, if we could. It would be really cool, Brittany, if we could actually somehow leverage, the interest in these groups from week to week and become even more organized about how to make the contribution, whether it's inside these rooms or, uh, to any of the work you're doing outside of these rooms.
Absolutely. And one thing that Michael and I have talked about is how do we bring in those similar conversations about what he's doing and perhaps invite startups to these conversations, right? So that's in the works. It may not happen in the next month or so, but those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about so that we make actionable steps and are not just talking about it 100%.
Yeah, one of the things is because of Michael's activity in a lot of other smart cities projects, he wants to bring in a lot more startups within the government space, and we would like to invite him to these conversations so we can get some more actionable things off the ground. Uh, I see John in the audience. I know John's trying to do some of the similar ideas within the UK space, with being able to get some of these ideas actionable so we can actually start moving some things.
Hey, Marcus. I'm sorry, I just got back. I'm sorry. My maintenance guy just got here, and I missed like the past. Since you were talking about blockchains LLC.
So it's fine.
Sorry, I should have said something, but you were going, and I had to.
Yeah. It was basically I just started talking about some of the IoT companies that were, or some of the IoT devices within some of the smart buildings that we are aware of. I think Anthony's probably even more aware of some other future IoT things that I just don't even know of.
Oh, there's so much out there. But on to the point about Michael Lake and leading cities, there's a lot of other similar groups and entities similar to that. There's one over in Europe called Be Smart .city is the website, and B is BEE, like the bumblebee. And there's national leading cities here in the U.S. as well. There was a Metro Labs innovation group as well that would allow cities to put use cases or problems that they were looking for technology solutions out there, and startups could send in their proposals and work with cities that way. So that was another great way to engage startups to gain traction with municipalities here in the U.S. I think these are all great ideas, and I love hearing more and more people getting involved, because that's the only way you're going to move the needle forward, and not just let all these um, technology giants just gobble everything up. So, any way I could help the little man out, I will as well.
I appreciate you, Anthony.
I hope you appreciate my digital twin after I leave this world.
I can't wait to play with him in the metaverse.
I do want to give Amarali the opportunity to share his thoughts. You're probably busy right now, as you are sometimes when you join our conversations at this time, but still wanted to ask you what your thoughts might have been as you've been listening to the conversation.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Marcus, Cody, Stephanie, Anthony, and everyone else in the audience. Now it's again another round of really good conversation. I just I think it's a habit now just to listen to you guys talk, because I learned so much. Um, I think what I'm getting out of this conversation is that um, blockchain may help us move into a direction where we have a much more safe, secured data without the um, um, you know probably in a decentralized way. And please correct me if I'm wrong here, but yeah, in a way that it's help achieves a lot of goals, more than just the security of the data. And yeah, I think you guys were talking about it. That the most interesting conversation was about somebody, I think, I think it was Marcus who brought up altered carbon and how there's going to be a digital copy of it. There's definitely other show, or there was a movie called Trans. It was Johnny Depp's movie. I forgot the name, but it was pretty much the same concept where you have your um, conscious, quote unquote, conscious brain inside a machine. Um, but yeah, I think there's not much from my side to contribute to this conversation, except that I really find this interesting. Really, really found this interesting. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna take one more last moment, John. If you want to introduce yourself, I'm gonna send your invite and just kind of mention some of the stuff that you're doing, because I think I guess he's busy.
All right. So before we close the room, just gonna ask, I think we got a couple really great recommendations here around how do we bring this forward, how do we make sure that what we're talking about here is actionable. First and foremost, we've been documenting these conversations, so you can go back and listen to the conversation if you're a listener on LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Feel free to give us recommendations there in the comments as you go back and listen to the recording. We are looking to have more conversations with people who are working in the smart city space about how we can incorporate and or promote startups who are working on blockchain solutions to really figure out how we could actually realize something close to a a building building actual full on blockchain city, whatever that looks like. We're still visioning that, and we'd like to continue figuring out how that can have a positive impact on access for citizens that live in cities today. and cities in the future. So with that, I do want to open it up really quickly. Are there more recommendations? If you are interested in a future conversation under the Smart City community, please share your ideas as well as any recommendations on how this conversation could have gone better or what you enjoyed. So with that, handing it off to anybody in the audience who has a comment or something they'd like to share. And then if you're in the audience here, please raise your hand. Jalen, welcome to the room. Sorry you're joining here late as we're wrapping up, but good to see you as well anyway. Plus deltas, Anthony?
I'll do you one better, and I'll bring a couple guests on that actually have some blockchain companies, and they're doing some interesting stuff. So what I'll do is I'll have them connect with you. I'll make an introduction and see if we could get them on, because I think people who are working in blockchain, they're far, they're not readily known. They don't usually have a ton of money spending on marketing. So anything I could do to help promote them and hear the stories of companies that are building from the ground up and coming up with unique technology solutions with blockchain. So I'll look to do that and hand them off to you. And
Thank you so much for that offer, Anthony. We're looking forward to having them on. We appreciate that willingness, your willingness to make that introduction. Jalen, welcome to the stage. Please introduce yourself to the audience here and share your thoughts.
Hey, my name is Jalen. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Startup Societies Foundation. We work, we really help people build smart cities or just cities in general, but, every people in the space, at least we have a lot of people connected to blockchain technology as well who are like trying to build blockchain cities or smart villages. So if there's anyone who's like interested in that stuff, you can follow me on Twitter. I am usually either retweeting something that has to do with smart cities, that's kind of like in my view of stuff. I'm like posting about smart cities futurist stuff. You can also follow startup societies. I'm usually retweeting smart city stuff and doing the same thing. If you're looking for more information in regard to like blockchain development, you can definitely find it there.
Thanks so much for joining. You were cutting out Jalen up for a little bit, but what we did hear was that you are on Twitter, and we can find out more by following you there about your efforts as well as companies that you follow and are already working on blockchain solutions for smart cities. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Any other responses and suggestions at this time? All right. You guys know how to find us. You find us on Twitter, find us on Instagram, find us on LinkedIn. That's where we post and chat and DM the most. You can reach out to Marcus or myself in regards to anything Smart City Community Club related. We are excited to host these conversations on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central every week. And again, this is a super exciting time to see how all of these technologies interconnect and how we can pursue access to citizens. So thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you guys later this week as we meet in the Prop Tech group, as well as next week back in the Smart City Community Club. So with that, thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.